So on the mastering chain, which I'm going to pull down, like 6 dBs that I added for the earlier examples, we can use it to add microdynamics, so add punch overall, so for the elements to actually, react together with one another. Now it's only not one bus, or let's say just the drums, just the leads, just the midliners, it's everything together. So everything is going to be reacting to the loudest element in the mix. So what we could do, as I did before when I was showing this to you in the first level of basics of mixing and mastering, we could do the same thing again with that compressor, or using a compressor that has even more options than this one. So let's find one in the plugins. And I like this one from FabFilter, just like that. Okay, so what I do have right here is much more control over how I'm compressing. Now, first of all, I do have the range, I do have the hold, so I can even hold the compression at some point, but let's say I just need that, knee setting, threshold and ratio is normal, attack, release, all good. Now I have different styles of compression. This compressor actually can be, as you can see, 8 different kinds of compressors at the same time. Now let's say we have this, you see, bus or mastering compression. So we can use this mastering compression for the master channel, just like this, hardly more ratio than it is already, just like that. Let's try that on the entire track. So you can see this compressor has quite a slow release. You can see that by that red line, the gain reduction line showing us the histogram of gain reduction. So if I play that again, so look at the release. Takes a lot of time to actually release the compressor completely. Now I made the attack quite slow also to let through the first harmonic. But I could mess with those, so let us change these settings so you can hear what it sounds like. So you can see when I pull the attack to be much faster, how it reacts really suddenly, really fast to the fast transients that are happening in the song. So you see, when I do that, when I do the fast attack, fast release, I'm actually cutting, all of those transients that happen in the music. So you can see that with the fast attack and, fast release, I'm actually affecting all of those transients, rendering them almost non-existent. So I'm cutting down on the transients and cutting down on all those small micro punches that happen. But if I pull the attack a little bit back up, you will hear those starting to get through. So listen to that. You see how much punch we gain when we do that, when we just allow some attack for all of those initial transients that push the compressor to come through. Now, another thing we can do on master compression, any compression, of course, on the buses and too, but if we have a compressor that allows us, is to actually filter the sidechain input of it. So the sidechain input of a compressor, as we learned before, the signal being listened to by the compressor, by the, let's say, the threshold function, the signal being listened to can actually be different than the signal being compressed. Now, we don't want that. It is the same signal, of course, but in this case, we're going to be filtering out the signal being listened to by the threshold. So we're applying, let's say, high pass or a low cut filter to the same signal we are compressing, but we don't hear that change. That change is only for the threshold functionality. So now when we're compressing, we're not listening to the ultra low frequencies. Okay, so anything below 100 Hertz is not going to be entering the threshold, so it's not going to be something that is going to trigger the compression to happen. Let's try that, and I'm going to leave the settings as they are, but I'm going to be moving this filter so you can see how that affects the compression. Of course, I'm going to make the compression really extreme, really hard, so that you can actually hear the differences better. This is why I keep the compression as hard as it is at the moment. So let's try that and move the filter. So what you can notice, hopefully, is that once I add in all of those frequencies, the pumpiness actually becomes much more exaggerated. And why pumpiness? Well, now we have the sub. If I do this, if I open up all of the signal, we have this sub pushing on the compressor. And it reacts differently. If I take away all of those sub frequencies, now they're not affecting the threshold. So other frequencies affect threshold more, so that higher part of the kick, higher part of the bass, and even the snare, the low part of the snare is like right somewhere there. So we have a different reaction of the threshold to the entire signal since we have cut off all the low frequencies. So we can reduce that pumping effect if we just reduce what we are listening to and cut off some of the roll off some of these low frequencies that are affecting the threshold to behave that way. So hopefully you can see the difference right there. I'm going to pull that volume up just a tiny bit so you can hear what's happening. Nice, you can see the difference. You can see the difference of more pumping, less pumping. So this is something that we can achieve when we actually have a filter on that side chain, on that signal being listened to by the detection field of a compressor. This compressor does give us the opportunity to actually hear that side chain signal with this audition button right here. So this way we can actually hear what the compressor is listening to. What is the signal that the detection field is getting to decide to, did we cross the threshold or not. So this is also a very useful feature, especially when mastering, since sometimes even filtering out some of the really ultra lows, like keeping it at like 60 or 80 Hertz, is actually going to help the compression to sound more natural and less pumpy.